What an incredible first year it's been for Fostering Futures.
We've had the opportunity to hear from amazing experts, families, professionals, and individuals sharing real-life stories that inspire, educate, and brought awareness to important topics impacting children, youth, and families.
We're so thankful to everyone who has listened, supported, and joined us on this journey.
If you or someone you know would be interested in being a guest on the show, visit the CA Help website and complete our interest form. We'd love to hear your story and share your expertise.
Don't forget to share Fostering Futures with your family, friends, and coworkers so even more people can join in on the conversation.
We'll be taking a short summer break and returning in August with brand new episodes and conversations you won't want to miss.
So have a wonderful summer, and we'll see you soon on Fostering Futures.
The relentless
pursuit
of whatever
works
in the life of a child.
Welcome to Fostering Futures with CA Help, a podcast dedicated to our relentless pursuit of whatever works in the life of a child. I'm your host, Athena Cordero, inviting you to join me and countless others as we share our unique perspectives and expertise in the world of special education, behavioral health, social-emotional well-being, and community. Follow us on Buzzsprout, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Welcome, everyone, to Fostering Futures. Today, I'm sitting down with Dr. Amy Young. And Dr. Young, you are Chief of Forensic Pediatrics at Loma University Children's Hospital.
Yes.
I love that hospital. Actually, my kids have been there, and they've taken very good care of them.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
Good, good. And you know, I think the biggest reason we got an opportunity to sit with you today is because you're actually going to sit with our entire staff this afternoon and talk to them about your work and about the impact that our work has on kids, just based on what you've seen in your experience locally and in some of the data, and how the impact affects them in their circumstances, maybe if they're dealing with trauma, things like that. So as Chief of Forensic Pediatrics at Loma, first, what is forensic pediatrics?
That's the same question I asked myself in medical school. So, you know, there are various subspecialties in pediatrics. So most people, when they come out of medical school, they complete a residency in some area of focus. For me, that was pediatrics.
Okay.
So it's a 3-year training program, and then you gain board certification in pediatrics, which we really consider as like general medical care for children, 0 to 21,
Okay.
right? So most people with kids go for child checks, vaccinations, those types of things. After completing that residency, you can decide to go on to subspecialty training. It's not as common. It is more training. Still, you know, you're not being paid very well, but your school loans are due.
Right.
And so pretty much any system in the body has a subspecialty. So there's pediatric endocrinology, rheumatology, neurology, and those are all 3-year additional trainings. My subspecialty, we call it forensic pediatrics. It's also known as child abuse pediatrics.
Okay.
And that is an additional 3-year training to become board certified as an expert in child maltreatment.
Oh.
So that includes evaluation, diagnosis, and treatment for children who've been victims of sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, really any type of significant trauma or adversity in childhood is our expertise.
Wow. So is it safe to say that you are called on often to testify in, any type of hearing when it comes to child abuse, neglect, things like that?
Yes. So what typically happens, it can happen 2 ways. So a child who is a suspected victim, the first interaction might be with law enforcement or Children and Family Services. We used to call them Child Protective Services, or CPS. If they have a case, they will refer it to my team. We're the only team for all of San Bernardino County.
Okay.
And we also handle most of the severe cases in Riverside County because Loma Linda Children's Hospital is the only level 1 trauma center for the Inland Empire. So a case may come to us outpatient if a child has injuries, but it's not so severe that they need to be in the hospital, then we'll see them as an outpatient. Or the other way a child can come to us is really through the hospital or an outside hospital who suspects child abuse for an injury, transfers to Loma Linda, and then we're called in as a consultant.
Okay.
So really the first interaction is typically with the child and examining them. You can kind of think of the body like a crime scene. And a lot of the kids who have severe injuries are too little to verbalize what's happened to them. We piece it together through the exam, imaging studies, and then we make a diagnosis as to whether we believe the injuries are the result of abuse or an accident. And so, yes, eventually we may testify in court, although our priority is like immediate safety for children.
Gotcha. Okay. So when I'm hearing you talking about child abuse,
Yes.
and thank you for clarifying that, because my thought was forensic pediatrics, what all does that encompass? So when you're making that determination, I know you said you work with a team. Have there been, I guess I'm looking at this on a spectrum where you might be called in where they're not sure.
Correct.
And you guys get to help them determine or, let them know what you think it is, to where you come in and it's absolutely what they were concerned about. And then I guess what happens then, do you have to notify, like you said, Child Protective Services? Do you write a report? Like what's the protocol, I guess?
Yes. So we immediately engage. If we feel that it is accidental or a medical condition, there are some medical conditions that can mimic abusive findings. And so we're there. Our job is to clear that up because we don't want any undue stress to a family, that isn't necessary to disrupt the family environment. So that would be information that we would educate the investigators about. If we do feel, from the evidence that it is consistent with an abusive injury, we're also working with investigators. They may already be involved or we may be reaching out to them. And then we have a whole multidisciplinary collaborative within San Bernardino County that involves District Attorney's Office, the County Council for Children and Family Services, all the investigative agencies who come together to come to the best resolution for a child. First, for their safety, ultimately for, the criminal aspect.
Wow. You said that there are some conditions, like some health conditions that might present as, signs of abuse. What's one of them, maybe?
Yeah, I think so. There are conditions that, for instance, can impact the genital area of a female that can look like bruising, bleeding, things that make a lot of providers think I need to worry about trauma in the genital area.
Yeah.
But with an exam by someone who knows what to look for, we can actually realize that those are either infections or autoimmune conditions that have weakened the tissue and led to those findings. So that, I've had quite a few cases where it was felt it was sexual abuse, and we were able to correct that and make sure children, one, got the treatment they needed for the medical condition, but then also didn't disrupt the family.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would imagine then in a situation like that, because the average parent has no idea of a health condition that can cause, symptoms that can present as abuse, but I would absolutely imagine that they would feel intimidated and attacked if a pediatrician made, a comment or a question that made them feel like that was the case. So, I would think that me as a parent, that parents would be happy, that there's someone or a team of folks who can make that distinction or, that clarification for doctors, especially with something so sensitive. Okay, that's fascinating. I didn't realize the difference there.
I mean, you bring up a good point, though, in that we are really trying to also educate the family,
right?
Because it can feel very adversarial and that people are making assumptions or judgments, whether it isn't abuse or it is abuse. I want to be very transparent with the family to let them know what I think, because I feel like, for one, we have this idea that child abuse happens by evil people.
Right.
And that's almost never the case.
Right.
There are systems that there's frustration, stress, poor coping. And when it's identified, we can work to stop any future occurrences and hopefully strengthen a family, especially those that are protective within the family and just need to know that it shows us there's something going on with their little one. And oftentimes people will say they are appreciative, that they want the best for their child like I do.
Right.
And we work to that end. Yeah.
Wow. So, and then also I can imagine, like you said, it's not always some evil person, to blame for that. It's often someone a family trusts or knows, which is a shame. That's very, very hard to understand. But at the same time, you're almost breaking it to a family that there's something going on, and now they have to figure out, what that is. And of course, still, try to put that together, to be able to just to be at home and, and take care of the little one. I can't imagine how difficult that must get.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
I mean, on one end of it, I appreciate and grateful that there's teams like you and yours to do the work. But then at the same time, like, how do you not take it all home with you?
That's a very good question. I wish I had better answers for this, but I tell people, once the door was open to me and I knew about this, and I knew there are less than 300 doctors practicing in the entire country who have the training that I have.
Wow.
It is the biggest area of workforce shortage in medicine, which you could understand why, right? The personal toll, burnout. No doctor likes to be in a courtroom.
Right.
It can be very adversarial. There are people who have said, I'm a crusader. I call everything abuse.
Right.
You have to deal with all of that. But I also have a job where every single day I can see the difference I'm making in kids' lives. And I feel very fortunate for that, to be invited in during a very rough time, a very vulnerable time, and to do something to speak up for someone who has no voice. It kind of fuels you forward. It's also taught me a lot about what to do to change how we even do forensic medicine in pediatrics and kind of build the next chapter that I think is improved from where we were, 20 years ago when I started.
Right. It reminds me, there are positions in education that get to deal with child abuse or neglect. And we got a chance to talk to, child welfare and attendance folks who have kind of laid out what their role is. And really, like you, they're trying to work with families to educate them as much as they possibly can, because we know that worst case scenario abuse, a child can be removed, from their home, from their family, placed in foster care, or, change their life very abruptly. So when you say things like people think you're a crusader and, this is what you want from the situation, I think it's because we hear more about the negative than, like you said, where this is a health issue or, something that you didn't realize could present this way. We probably hear less of that. Where it's not as serious, but we hear more of the serious, which of course, you're going to hear the negative and you're going to think that's what they want. That's what they want to find. That can't be an easy position to be in. But again, grateful, right? We're grateful that we have folks who look at that. You also serve as medical director of the Children's Assessment Center, CAC,
yes,
of San Bernardino. I read that it's one of the largest child advocacy centers in the nation. Can you tell us what the center does for kids?
Yeah. So there is a group in Alabama called National Children's Alliance. And, years ago, if a child was, decades ago, I would say, was considered to be potentially a victim of child abuse, it was very disjointed. The investigation was very disjointed. They might tell a teacher, then that is reported to police, and first patrol comes out, and patrol might take them to a hospital where there are no experts. And all of these people are talking to kids and asking them questions and examining them and maybe don't have the training, right? Because I'm not trained in, there are many forms of medicine I don't know, right?
Right.
And by the time a child is finally where they need to be, they've been asked so many questions, re-traumatized through the process. Sometimes things can be asked in a way that aren't developmentally appropriate. So it seems like a child's changing their story, but they're just very little and weren't questioned appropriately. So out of Alabama, they developed these standards of excellence for a child abuse center.
Okay.
And so the Children's Assessment Center is a national model of a center of excellence where everybody comes under one roof to make a one-stop location for children.
Wow, okay.
So it's really minimal facts in the field that should be gathered. And then the child should be brought to a center where the expertise exists to have a forensic interview by a trained provider who knows how to ask developmentally appropriate questions while investigators watch. That's a very child-friendly atmosphere instead of being talked to by like a police officer, right?
Imagine, yeah.
Have a therapist in the same location who can deliver services, an advocate, say like with a district attorney's office, and a medical provider, and we're all working together to case conference to get to the best result for children.
Oh.
So our CAC is pretty cool because it is a very strong collaborative between, the chief executive officer of our county sits on our board.
Wow.
The head of Children and Family Services is there, the head of Department of Behavioral Health, the elected district attorney. It is really high-level county leaders who are at a table to make sure that we're doing the best we can to protect children in our communities. And Loma Linda is the lead agency. Loma Linda Children's Hospital is the lead agency for the medical services. Because physician's job is to keep children's best interest as the center, we're the lead agency of the Children's Assessment Center, but have this really collaborative relationship with all of these county organizations, which isn't true for every county that I know. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love that it is child-centered in a way that everyone's wrapping around the kid instead of the kid having to go to all these different places and experiences with adults, especially because you're right. Trying to ask a very serious question to a 3-year-old, or a 4-year-old or littler. I don't even know how someone could, unless you've gone to school for that,
Right.
trained for that. How do you get such important information? And then for the child to go to somebody else and it get asked in a different way, that's got to be confusing. My heart goes out to, man, that just seems tough. It just seems like a tough spot to be in.
Well, and it's, providers who, there's a lot of, secondary trauma from those situations, right? If every day in and day out, you're examining victims who have just recently experienced abuse or just for the first time talking about abuse, it can really take a toll on the providers.
Yeah.
And I would say I myself reached a point of pretty significant burnout mid-career. And I saw children who I saw them as infants. I did everything I felt I needed to do to protect them. And years later, I was seeing them again.
Wow.
For a second instance of abuse.
Yeah.
And at times, we have children who lose their life to child abuse.
Yeah.
And it is very rare that those weren't preventable. Most cases of child homicide, we see that there were prior signs and symptoms of abuse that were missed. And so mid-career, I thought, I know you're doing good work, but we know that, children do better in their families.
Right.
They need safe environments. I'm coming in, it's an opinion of child abuse. They may go into foster care and I may never see them again.
Right.
And what were their educational outcomes and how did their life turn out? And so, all of us as professionals, I feel like if we keep an open mindset doing the right thing, which is typically the hard thing, we'll open new chapters up for ourselves that are solutions. And that's really where the Resiliency Institute came in, was to figure out how to take it to the next level of building something bigger and more lasting for kids.
You read my mind. So you said mid-career you were kind of at that burnout stage. And so is that where RICA, it's the Resiliency Institute for Childhood Adversity, is that when that started or around that time?
Yes. So I had quite a number of children. They weren't children anymore. They were teenagers and they had been in foster care for quite a long time. I connected to them when they were victims. I wasn't their pediatrician. So I really had nothing to offer them as a physician, but they would make appointments to come back and see me at the CAC, and they would bring their college application or they would be job hunting and want my opinion. And so I had this group of kids where I had become really their mentor or that one consistent adult in their life.
Yeah.
And I just wanted a better opportunity for them. I wanted them to go to college and realize their dreams. And I also had a number of cases where those, as I was saying earlier, saw them as an infant. They came back re-injured. And so I knew in my heart there was more that needed to be done that was long-term. And as serendipity had it, one of the district attorneys that I work with often, she was actually the High Desert district attorney, was on a random trip with a friend and met a philanthropist, a man who had the 4th largest credit card processing company in the country called Heartland.
Okay.
And he had a college scholarship program. And it wasn't in California. He was kind of looking at maybe Sacramento as an expansion. I didn't know any of this. I just knew that he had amassed considerable wealth from his very ethical, strong business practices. Right. I never thought I would meet someone in credit card processing. So, she said, well, he gives out scholarships and he's looking at vulnerable youth. So I had this group of kids and I thought, well, I want to meet him. Yeah. And maybe he would give them scholarships. And, one of them was a high desert student. And so she arranged for us to meet, and he came to the Children's Assessment Center. His name is Bob Carr. And I showed him around and told him what I did. And he's like, okay, Dr. Young, yes, I will give those kids a scholarship, but 150 more if you would oversee a chapter of this scholarship program called Give Back.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I would be a fool to say no to this, right? But I'm a physician. How is that all going to work out? And as I spent time kind of in contemplation about that, that's when I realized that's what gave me the vision of getting even more under one roof. So not just forensic pediatrics, but then ongoing trauma-informed primary pediatric care. So those team of providers, we would now also become their primary providers. Follow them long-term till they're 21 for medical care, integrate mental health services, so we grew a mental health team, and then bring in the educational advocacy piece and give scholarships to young people who had experienced foster care or homelessness.
Wow.
So that group of young people, he gave them all a scholarship. My high desert student was the first one I brought in to the program. And she got a scholarship to the University of Laverne. He prepaid scholarships at 3 schools, Cal State, San Bernardino, University of Laverne, and Chapman.
Okay.
And she graduated with a bachelor's degree.
Wow.
And then what I found, we have 200 kids in that program, and about 92% of them are on track in their post-secondary plan, which could be career or college.
Yeah.
But we learned it also doesn't stop there. It's not just the money, they need support. And it's not just the degree, they need help with career placement.
Right.
And so that's our latest chapter.
Wow.
Is helping young people find housing and career placement after they finish. And we're hiring some of our alumni as medical assistants in my clinic, community healthcare workers, student advocates. Yeah, it's kind of full circle.
That is amazing. I can't imagine how much it fills your cup when you have to deal with such serious work, and then you get to do something where you can see a positive impact from students receiving a scholarship, be on track, with their program, and then to have them come to you, all those years later or however much time later for advice, or to show you what they're doing. I think that would take me from depleted to overfilling immediately. Mm-hmm. So I guess that burnout, that kind of helps, some of that I could see.
Yeah, I think I see my work as my love letter. And how am I going to get choked up? You're getting me choked up.
Sorry.
My love letter to the world, my goal since I was little was to make a lasting impact on somebody's life. Just so one person, a couple people breathe easier because of me, that I always felt would be worthwhile. And to sit at a kid's college graduation and then they say to me, I wouldn't have made it if you weren't there. That feels really fulfilling,
I can't imagine.
But then you also want to do that over and over again.
How do I replicate that?
Yeah, not just one. You want 100 and 200, and I think that's my mission now. Is how do I create an army of people who want that same thing for kids and will carry that torch after I'm gone. Yeah.
I've learned so much in such a short amount of time. But I can tell you right now, I appreciate the explanation, the science, and, the seriousness and what you get to do. But I'll tell you, you're one of the few people that I've sat down with for maybe 20, 25 minutes where I can see your heart, all over you. And it's very sincere. I want to make sure people understand what this is and what you and your team get to do. I want to keep talking about it. I know that our folks are going to love hearing from you this afternoon.
I'm glad.
Okay, I'm going to stop. I don't want to make you cry before you go
Okay.
talk to our staff. Thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Yes.
This was awesome. I hope to get you back at another time to talk about what's going on in the future.
Okay. And I guess I would just leave with this.
Okay.
If you see something, say something. Children need us. They need us to be the eyes and ears and to speak up for them. Often we can be worried. What if I'm not right and I report a suspicion? I mean, the system is there to figure that out. Children and Family Services want children maintained in their homes. We want to see children maintained in their homes as medical providers, but we have to get the protective systems involved and strengthen families. So I tell people, if you see something, say something. Don't hesitate. Don't lose sleep over being worried about a child when you just need to take action. And if you find yourself in a position where you need help, reach out to the services. The Resiliency Institute will hopefully always be there. We're a phone call away for someone who wants to know how to receive help.
We'll put that link up on the landing page to make sure people can find that, get more information from you. I love that message. If you've got it on a t-shirt, I'll wear it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love it.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Before we wrap up, we want to remind you that if you or someone you know is facing a crisis, help is available. You are not alone. If it's an emergency, please call 911. For immediate support, you can reach out to the Crisis and Suicide Hotline by dialing 988. Remember, taking the first step to ask for help is a sign of strength. Stay safe, take care of yourself, and take care of each other. Until next time, be well.
See you next time.